This episode is brought to you by the Sasquatch Flag Company. The Sasquatch Flag Company is a family-owned business in New England that builds hand-carved American flags from seasoned white pine. Each flag is hand-built and each star on the flag is hand-hammered and chiseled. No two flags are alike. They offer a variety of flag designs to honor the police, military, firefighters, dispatchers, and search and rescue personnel, to name a few. These stunning handmade flags look great in an office, a studio, the back porch, or above the fireplace mantle. They make the perfect gift for the veteran, first responder, or patriot in your life. Now, I love these flags, and I've been giving them as gifts for years, and I was a customer long before they became a sponsor of the show. I can't recommend them enough. So if you're looking for that perfect, uniquely American-made gift to give away, or if you want to treat yourself, go to SasquatchFlags.com and get your order in today. This episode is brought to you by the Fraternity of Excellence. The Fraternity of Excellence is an online and real-world community for men who are looking to improve in all areas of their lives. The men of FOE are working together to become better husbands, fathers, and leaders at work and in their communities. They live by a simple philosophy: as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Now, I've been a member for more than 3 years, and for me, I finally found a brotherhood of men that I was missing from my time in the military. Now, I love being around guys who are dedicated to becoming a better version of themselves. So if you're interested in becoming a man of excellence as well, go to fraternityofexcellence.com, or you can reach out directly to me to learn more. Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Danna. Dave is a man on a mission. Last year, he made the decision to lose weight and get in shape, and he decided to share his journey online. Since then, he's lost more than 100 pounds, amassed 50,000 followers on Twitter, been acknowledged by Arnold Schwarzenegger himself, and been featured on Fox News and other news outlets, and he just seems to be getting started. I'm excited to have him on the show to talk about what it takes to acknowledge you have a problem and develop the mindset and habits to fix it. So, Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's my pleasure being here, and it's still amazing and unbelievable to hear that type of intro when it's being talked about me.
Well, I mean, congratulations. I mean, I've been following you for a while, and I've been following your journey, and it's very inspirational. So congratulations on losing 100 pounds and finishing your MBA. No easy task, and you did it all, and you're doing it all online. So congratulations on your journey so far.
Thank you very much.
So tell us your story. When did you decide enough is enough and I'm going to make a change?
Absolutely. So last year, almost 1 year to the date, it was May of 2022. I took a flight for the first time since the pandemic, and I needed to get a seatbelt extension on that flight. And that was pretty much, well, not pretty much, that was the most embarrassing moment of my life. And so I came back from that trip, and I had just moved into this house, so everything was still in boxes, but I knew there was a scale somewhere. And so I dug it out and I got on the scale. That was June 1st of 2022, and it gave me an error message. So I assumed, cheap stuff these days, I'll buy a new one from Amazon and then I'll get my real weight. And then the new one came and I got on that scale and it gave me an error message. And then I looked back at the description on Amazon and I saw that this scale had a 400-pound limit. And I realized that it wasn't either of the scales. In fact, I still use that original scale today. It was me that was having the issue. And the issue was that I was over 400 pounds. So that, combined with the seatbelt extension incident on the plane, were my two wake-up calls. And so right then, basically June 2nd or June 3rd of last year, I started dieting and I started exercising, never having gone to the gym before, not really knowing what type of diet to follow. And for 4 weeks, I continued to get that error message. But on June 29th of 2022, I got 399.9 on the scale, which may not seem like much of an accomplishment to most, but it was my first big on-scale victory, let's say. And now almost a year later, I'm down in the 290s. But that was the original catalyst, the seatbelt extension, and then the error message on the scale last June.
Wow. It's interesting when I hear your story, because I think a lot of people might find themselves in that situation and they'll say, well, this is just who I am. This is just my lot in life. What went into your mind? Did you feel like you could fix this? Did you feel like you say, yes, I have a problem, but did you feel at that time that you had the skills to do it, to fix it?
No, to be honest, but I felt at that time that I needed to fix it.
Mm.
It was an issue of I didn't know what to do. Today we're bombarded by information, by infotainment, by analysis paralysis, and
Yeah.
so you can find experts online telling you to do the complete opposite things, and you'll have the best results. So I definitely felt paralyzed at the time, but at the same time I had the catalyst to change, and I had those two wake up calls. So one of the things I did was I wanted to do something radically different than I had done before. As a big guy, as a fat guy, I had been over 300 pounds for several years at that point, and now I was over 400 pounds. I had tried dieting before, I had tried exercising before, it hadn't worked. And instead of spending a ton of time doing research and analysis at that point in time at over 400 pounds, being worried about chairs collapsing under me and having difficulty tying my shoes, I decided I was going to try a radically different approach, and I was just going to embrace trial and error, and I was going to embrace, getting comfortable and being in uncomfortable places like the gym, walking into the gym for the first time at over 400 pounds. And so I don't think I had the knowledge or necessarily the tools to know what I was doing, but I had the catalyst and I had the drive, especially early on, that I needed to make that change. And it's been a year of trial and error, a year of tweaking, a year of learning, and a year of getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
I absolutely love that. And I love the fact that you pointed it out. And I talk about this a lot in the podcast is sometimes we just got to get started. And even though,
Yeah.
and a lot of people get stuck, like you said, in paralysis by analysis. I'm going to analyze all these different diets and these different workout plans, and I'm going to do all the research. And meanwhile, each day is going by. And the best thing you can do, a lot of cases, is take action and make corrections along the way and learn, how does my body respond to this? How does my body respond to this? Okay, this is working. This isn't working. And using trial and error to find the best solution for you versus trying to find all the gurus that tells you, hey, you got to eat this and eat that and do this workout. I love it. I love it. And I think that
Absolutely.
you're definitely what you've proven through this past year is that the trial and error actually does work, and you actually found ways that you can make real changes and real physical changes to your body. And I think that's great. One thing that I want to ask you about is why did you decide to share your journey online? Why did you decide to make it public? Because I tend to be one of these guys. If I'm working on something, I'm going to do that in private, right?
Yeah.
And then come out and say, hey, look at me, type of thing. But you said no, I'm going to share this journey. And I'm just curious about that. Why did you make that decision to share it publicly?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I had done in the past that had not worked for me was not tackling my mental health issues as part of this journey and not tackling the mindset change, just focusing on the diet and exercise. And to be fair, that worked. I had lost 20,
Mm.
30, 40 pounds in the past, but I always fell off the bandwagon. I was always miserable doing it. And I always gained all the weight and then some back. So this time around, one thing I wanted to embrace was admitting to myself that I had a problem, was admitting to
Mm.
myself that even though I'm a man, I do have some feelings and some emotions, and there's probably some mental health issues going on here. And I wanted to embrace a radically different approach where I didn't bottle it all up and push it all down and try to do it all myself, and where I admitted that no man is an island and I may need some external
Mm.
factors, some external things to keep myself accountable. And one thing I realized was I had gotten very good, especially during the COVID years where I was working remotely. I work in accounting and finance, and so that went remote immediately, and I wasn't seeing very many people. I live hundreds of miles from home, so there weren't many flights. I wasn't seeing much family for those years. I got really good at lying to myself. And
Mm.
so I initially started on Instagram. I started with my own name, and I started posting a gym selfie almost every day and a picture of my feet on the scale every Wednesday, weigh-in Wednesday, so that I could look back and see, this is me. They're pictures of me. I can see the accountability. I can see the progress or lack thereof to hold myself accountable so that I can't lie to myself. Because standing in the mirror every morning, I had gotten sort of scary good at telling myself everything was fine when everything clearly wasn't fine. And then from there, I moved on to Twitter to have some sort of, secondary source. And then, I can't explain the rest, but people are following me now. So now I keep posting, for two reasons. But the original reason was self-accountability and to take a different approach that more embraced mental health and mindset change and accountability rather than trying to do it all on my own.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, and it's been fun. Like I said, I've been following your journey, and it's been fun to watch you and see the progress and sort of cheer you on. I mean,
Thank you.
it's a blast. I
It
mean,
has been.
and it says a lot about, like, you go in there for accountability reasons, but what it shows is also transparency. So you're saying, look, today wasn't a good, like some days,
Yeah, I've
like
said, yeah,
I couldn't get, you get up at 4. I'm a 4 a.m. guy too. So you're getting
yeah,
up at 4 a.m. every day so you can get to the gym. You're like, oh, I struggled. I didn't get up till 4:18 this morning.
yeah,
And
exactly.
you're
Yes.
sharing your struggles.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important because I think sometimes we only see the highlight reel for people, like, oh, look how
Yes.
great I am. I'm rich, I'm successful, I'm
Yeah,
good
exactly.
looking, I've got this beautiful wife and 3 great kids, everything's perfect. And we only see the highlight reels of most people. And you're saying, here's it all. Here's my full transparency, my good days, my bad days, my struggles. And I think that's really good to see. I think it's healthy to see that, that the people that are watching online are saying, hey, I have those same struggles myself too. I struggle with getting up every morning. I struggle with getting to the gym. I struggle with motivation, like, and I think that's really good because I think it shows a real honesty and a real transparency. And I think it's good to see that. So we're not just seeing the
Absolutely.
highlight reels, we're seeing the whole
Absolutely.
story. So
I
yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
that. Yeah. One of the things I struggled with early on was there's a lot of people who have lost a lot of weight and then they come to social media and they're like,
Yeah.
well, I dropped 200 pounds, I dropped 300 pounds. And the only thing I did was use this product and here's a discount code. And to me, it's just like, I
Uh,
don't, I'm not sure if that's really what you did. And I'm not, so one of the things was I wanted to document it for myself. And I wanted to make sure that when I was documenting it, I was authentic. Sometimes I'm documenting losing less than a pound in a week, which, at my weight, should be losing a little bit more than that. Or some days I went to Philly recently for a wedding and I had a Philly cheesesteak, and that got some comments, right? But it's who I am, and I'm still, I still have a corporate life and an academic life, a family life, a faith life, and sometimes there's going to be imperfections in the journey, and it's not going to be fully linear. And it was a real struggle with me early on because you'd see these people who look fantastic and they have these before pictures where they look a lot bigger than that, but the in between is just this sort of gray zone that that's what I'm trying to get through. That's the goal.
yeah. You're giving light to the gray zone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, so tell us about your early struggles. What was the most difficult part for you to get going, to get started? Was it mentally? Was it physically? Was it the diet? What was the biggest thing in the early stages in the early
Yeah.
struggles?
There were two things that jump out. The first month was very hard because I started waking up early right off the bat. I work full time. I'm in finance and accounting. I work as a consultant, and at that point in time, I was doing my MBA in the evening. So the only time that I thought I could build a routine, which was important to me, was doing it early in the morning. And I thought if I did it later in the day, these are my workouts I'm talking about, I would find excuses to put it off, and I would be tired. So that necessitated the 4:15 a.m. wake ups every day that I'm still doing. That was very tough in the beginning. And it was also very tough because you're then getting up way earlier than you want to, and you're walking into the gym alone at over 400 pounds, and I don't know what any of the machines do, right? There are all these gym bros in there lifting more than I weigh, right? And so, it was waking up early to do something that was uncomfortable, and then every Wednesday for the first 4 or 5 weeks, getting on the scale to get that error message over and over again.
Mm,
That was a real mental hit on top of the fact that I'm pushing myself so hard. And then really, that's why I mentioned getting the 399.9 on June 29th of last year. That date is seared in my mind. That number is seared in my mind. I know it's a weight that most people will never see, luckily, thankfully. But for me, it was such a victory. It validated the last 4 or 5 weeks of walking into the gym at that size, of waking up that early, of really pushing myself. But those first 4 weeks, those first 5 weeks, it was a real struggle. I had to every morning, a lot of prayer was involved, a lot of thinking about the future, a lot of thinking about why I was doing this, just to get myself through that 3-minute drive to the gym instead of turning around and going back to bed. And then the other big struggle I'll mention is I had avoided the doctor for years. I had a
mm,
job, I had insurance, but of course I knew what the doctor would tell a 300 or 400
yeah.
pound guy. And again, part of the lying to myself, part of the mental health issue, part of not admitting I had a problem, was avoiding the doctor. So I went for the first time last September. So that was several months into the journey, and I had blood work done for the first time in my life, and my A1C and my blood glucose was still in the pre-diabetic range, and my resting heart rate was like 102, which is like bad.
Mm.
And my blood pressure was, 140 something. It was in that range where it's pretty much, a high blood pressure. And again, I had just turned 30 years old. So all of those should be in the ideal range. And that was a little disheartening. It was disheartening and motivating at the same time, because on the one hand, I had been working out and pushing myself for 3 or 4 months. And at the time, I was still 370 pounds and all the blood work was bad, was basically what the doctor was saying. But on the plus side, I didn't know how bad it had been to start with, but I can only imagine how bad it had been if I had gone 6 months earlier. But those were the two struggle points early: getting that initial blood work and seeing all those red flags. And that first month, not even be able to get my own weight. I mean, that was the first 4 or 5 weeks were really tough.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it just shows again the example of sometimes you just have to persevere even if you don't see the progress, and eventually
Yeah.
you do. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a great story, because I can only imagine you're getting on the scale every week, you're changing your lifestyle, you're doing all the right things, and you're getting on the scale and you're making no progress, and you're still seeing the error message, and I can see where a lot of people would just say, I give up. I mean, this isn't working, and
Yeah.
I'm just going to be big, and that's who I am. But instead, you kept at it, and all of a sudden, June 29th, boom,
Yes.
there's you're like, oh, yeah, I bet your mind. I imagine you were like, oh shoot, this thing works.
It was a huge victory. It was a huge, and I remember celebrating. I remember telling my girlfriend that. I remember thinking to myself, this is both a huge moment for me and kind of sad that I've gotten to the point where I'm celebrating 399.9, but that's not going to stop me, right? That was a huge motivator for the next couple of months when I was still in the 390s, still in the 380s, still in the 370s. Yeah, but I'm getting a number now, which is more than I could say when I first started.
And you just recently went under 300 when it was just not too long
Yes.
ago, because I remember you
Last month, yeah,
posted
a
it.
couple of weeks ago, yeah.
I was just like, yes. I mean, I'm like sitting here
Yes.
cheering you on. I'm like
Thank you. Thank
like
you.
one of your biggest fans now, because I'm just like, let's go, you got this. And I'm like,
Thank you.
and that's one of the things I want to ask you about is, what's it been like sharing your journey, with the world? What have been some of your biggest surprises with the general public, and some of your biggest disappointments with the kind of interactions you see with people?
Overwhelmingly positive, and
Okay.
overwhelmingly my reaction has been kind of stunned, to be honest. Just one, that people want to follow me; two, that it's on Twitter, which in my opinion is like the most volatile political
Yes,
culture
can
war
be.
type of place, right? Like, and especially in the last 6 to 12 months, and that it has been such a positive experience, especially from those gym bros who were initially so intimidating when I walked in at over
Yeah.
400 pounds and really didn't know anything. And especially because for the first 6 to 9 months of this journey, I didn't touch the weights, I didn't touch the strength training. I was scared of injury, I didn't know what I was doing. Even then, I was still at over 350 pounds at that point. And so I just did very basic cardio for like 30, 35 minutes a day. At that type of weight, you're burning some calories and getting the heart rate up and blood pumping, pretty much doing any physical activity for half an hour. And just the level of encouragement and the level of positivity I was getting from this ever growing community of guys who were doing what I considered like basically Herculean feats in the gym. And I'm just there, doing almost relatively nothing comparatively, and completely covered in sweat in 27 minutes just because I was so big. The social media reaction has been completely mind-blowing, and people tell me now regularly how much I inspire them and motivate them, and honestly, it's crazy to me, and it's a circle at this point, because that motivates and inspires me to keep going. But overwhelmingly positive and overwhelmingly crazy, not only like when Arnold Schwarzenegger reaches out and retweets me and features me, but also just the volume of DMs, I'm probably thousands of them behind, on Instagram and Twitter, of people just being like, I joined a gym, like I stopped drinking. It's just stuff that doesn't, not even really related to what I'm doing, but just making a change, making that first step. Because I remember how hard making that first step was, and how much I wanted to tell someone in those first few weeks before you could see any changes that I was doing something, and having them reach out to me as that person they're telling. It's so meaningful. It's been wildly positive. There are trolls, very small number of trolls, but I try to react to them in a positive way, and I try
Yeah.
to let them drive and motivate me even more. Kill them with kindness is sort of the approach I've taken. There's so much debate and back and forth on Twitter, and in most social media platforms. And I don't think it's healthy. You know, we live in a culture of extremes, and that's the same, you know, politics, culture, fitness. And I try not to engage with that. You know, it's not worth it to me. People ask me what the strategy is, why I'm doing it, what the goal is. I don't really know, right? I just started doing this for accountability to lose weight. You know, there's no media manager. I'm not selling coaching or anything. I'm just trying to lose weight and documenting it. And it's been mind blowing that people continue to follow me. It's been an incredibly positive and unexpected experience.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. And I do see a lot of positive interactions. And I'm hoping
Yes.
that there's less trolls in the world and there's more positive. And
Yeah.
I think
So
you
far,
hit
that's
on
been the
something,
case.
and that's so good to hear. It's so encouraging. Well, I think when you hit on one thing that's really important, I think is, you know, I kind of consider myself a gym bro. I've been actively in the gym for 10 years. I love weightlifting. It's one of my passions. But I would say this about gym bros is like we love it when people come to the gym. We love it when people say, I want to learn how to do this. And I think it's probably just the opposite. I think most people feel intimidated when they see people around
Yeah.
heavy weights and, you know,
Yeah.
grunting and all making all the noises. But it seems like a community that's very open to like, oh, you want to try this? Come on, let me show you how to do this. And we were very much come join our sport because we love what we do. And I think we're always, as just speaking as a 10-year gym bro, is that we're always working to get better. And so we're always striving to get to that next level. So we get it when someone says, I want to get to the next level. We're like, come on, let me, here's what I did. Here's how I got to that, you know. And so I think that, you know, people may be intimidated to be around people who love being in the gym, but we're just the opposite. We're like very humble crew trying to get better ourselves. So I think I'm glad to see that you've seen that reaction from the gym community as well too, because I
It's
know for right away I was like, yeah, let's go. As soon as I saw what you were
absolutely.
doing, I'm like cheering you on from day one. So
It's one of the biggest things I wish I could go back and convince 400 plus pound Dave of, or even, so let's go back a few more years, 300 plus pound Dave, right or 250, right whenever I should have started, is that gym intimidation or whatever they call it
yeah.
is completely out the window, at least in my case, but I'm pretty sure in many other people's cases, once you realize how supportive, how inclusive, and how motivating the gym bros really are, and that even the ones who might not want you to be there, they don't look at you, they don't care, they're minding their own business, right? They're trying to lift these incredible weights, they're not even looking at you. But 99.9%, it's one of the most positive and one of the most supportive communities, both online and in person. And
Mhm.
getting tips, getting advice, getting anything you want from them, at first I thought it was intimidating because there are people who've been there for decades and they're doing things that I probably will never get to. And then I realized that once you walk into the gym, all the other identities or stressors or things you have going on in your life go out the window for the 30 minutes, the 60 minutes you're in there, because everybody is just trying to work on self-improvement. They're trying to work on health. They're trying to work on matching or exceeding their personal bests, or whatever goal they're training towards. And that creates this sort of instant bond, this instant community
Yeah.
based on something that's really positive and really motivating. And from the outside looking in as a 400-pound guy, it's incredibly intimidating. And then from the inside looking out, I wish I could pull that 400-pound Dave in, because it's so motivating and it's so inspiring and it's so positive. I mean, it's been, I say that I don't go to the gym particularly to lose weight. I don't burn like an impressive number of calories in my 30, 35-minute workouts. I can eat a candy bar and offset most of them. But the mental health boost, the confidence boost, the positivity boost, the optimism boost, especially doing it so early in the morning, walking out of the gym at 5:30 covered in sweat before anyone else has woken up, even if the rest of the day is a train wreck, I feel like I've already been productive. I've already conquered the day. I've already won. And that's really the goal of 30 to 45 minutes of exercise a day. I mean, there's tons of health benefits as well, but it's just crazy how much it's done for me. And it's, one of the biggest things I tell people who haven't started yet or are starting or past Dave is that I wish I had started that part of this journey years and years earlier.
Yeah, I love it. I love to hear that. So the ultimate gym bro, Arnold Schwarzenegger, of which I have a poster in my gym of Arnold in his day, which is,
Yeah.
that idyllic body that he created back in the,
Mm-hmm.
70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Um, he's watching you online and he shouts you out and features you in his newsletter What goes through your mind when you see like this superhero? I mean, this real life
Yes.
superhero sort of, hey, saying, "Hey, Dave, way to go." What was that like?
Incredibly motivating, just an incredible moment overall, to be honest. When I woke up and saw that, again, I hadn't like tagged him or anything. He just found me. It was the first time ever I lifted. I don't even think it was 100 pounds with the bar. And, I wasn't doing it right. I now know, but I put it online, right, as part of my just
Mhm.
accountability and transparency, just like a 9-second clip of me doing 2 or 3 reps of no noticeable weight. And he retweeted me, and not just retweeted me, but had a whole thread of tips and tricks, told me he was proud of me, which was mind blowing, and then told me he wanted updates. And so when I got under 3 pounds, I tweeted that out just a few weeks ago, and he retweeted it, and he reached out again, and he was like, all right, like, let's see, like, I want another update at 250. It's been incredibly motivating, again, to see someone like that. There's so many public figures, so many celebrities that are engaged in far more narcissistic or
Yeah.
political or culture war type things. And here he is, spending his 70s, I think, on Twitter and on Instagram, motivating people and being positive, hugely, hugely beneficial to me. The biggest motivator in the last 6 months has definitely been that, but also just a huge, a huge upvote for my faith in humanity, to be honest, that someone like him is just
Yeah.
online giving lifting tips to people in Planet Fitness in his free time, right? Just, I mean, honestly, mind blowing. And like you mentioned, the fact that he continues to reach out, to give tips, to want updates, right? It wasn't just a one-time thing because he saw something going viral. It's been a continuous thing over 6 months now. And again, like, hugely personally motivating and inspiring, and just a huge boost in my confidence about just the future in general.
Oh, that is so good to see. That is, and again, you're right. It's just, it's a public figure that you never expect you'd ever have any personal interactions with,
Yes, yes.
especially not having much in common. Like you said, the Planet Fitness versus the
Yeah,
Gold's Gym,
exactly. Yeah.
and Mr. Olympia and all this stuff. It's just wild, and just so. And again, I think you're right. It restores faith in humanity. It makes you really appreciate. That there are there are good things in the world still, and
Absolutely.
people are still
Absolutely.
encouraging, and they're trying to help others, and I love that part of the
Yeah.
story.
He's taking a break from, filming his new Netflix series to, make sure that I'm keeping my elbows tucked and not flaring them too much on my second lift ever. And, now that I've had a little more interaction with him, I know that it's him running that account. Is, he hasn't, it's not his staff, which again is
Yeah.
just like wild to me. Like, he's filming a Netflix special. He's a super celebrity, and a former politician, right?
Right,
And
right.
this is what he's doing in his very limited free time in his 70s. Just a complete mind-blowing just event in my life, to be honest.
That's wild. And since then, you've been on the news, you've been in
Yeah.
podcasts like this, and you've done things you've never done before, right? You hadn't been on podcasts and been on the news
No.
before like
No.
this, right?
No,
Yeah.
so and originally I wasn't saying yes to a lot of interviews because I was 340 pounds, 50, 60 pounds. I still, it's out of my comfort zone. I'm introverted, Jewish accountant, right? Like, I'm way out of my comfort zone, and I'm not at my goal weight. I'm barely halfway there, depending on exactly where I want to end. And so, but at some point I decided, to start saying yes. Again, part of that, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, seeing how it would go, saying yes to more people. And again, an incredibly mind-blowing yet positive aspect of the journey that I never would have guessed. And it reminds me that there's so much in life, there's so many opportunities in life, and there's so much to do in life, that was one of the original catalysts that got me going. When I was over 400 pounds, I saw, my goal of being a father, being a husband one day, being a healthy role model for them, slipping away. And as this journey has progressed, all these other opportunities and things that have come along, from people wanting to talk to me, to Arnold Schwarzenegger, to again being on Fox News, and all the other stuff, has just reminded me that you never know what opportunities will come along, but that life is full of opportunities and full of optimism and full of positive things. But if I had stayed at over 400 pounds, and I was still gaining weight at that point in time, that those opportunities were slipping away. So that in and of itself is sort of a reinforcing, like, motivating factor to me at this point. Just another incredible aspect of the sort of an unbelievable last 6 to 10 months.
That's really good. That's really inspiring for sure. Absolutely.
Agreed.
One
Yeah.
of the things that we talk about on the show is, personal leadership, as I mentioned earlier, but it's about improving mentally, spiritually, financially, and physically, right? So we're working on all those things. And
Yes.
one of the things is I see you're doing that as well. So you just finished your MBA, which is,
Yes.
that's a mental exercise right there.
Thank you. Yes,
So
it was. Yes.
not easily done. And then you're also posting stuff about your financial journey. Like you were heavily in debt and now you've
Yes.
worked yourself out of debt. So you're putting yourself in a better financial position, a better physical position, a better mental position. I see your faith is important to you. I see that spiritual
Yes.
element
Yes.
too. You're working on all those four elements all the time. So um is that did one spark the other, or did it just all of a sudden like I'm going to be working on all these things together?
I think they reinforce each other, at least for
Okay.
me. And I think one of the reasons, again, last year when I was thinking about what I was doing, by the time last year rolled around, I had done a lot of work on my finances, for example, but I wasn't there yet. And I hadn't incorporated anything else, the spiritual, the physical, the mental. And I was thinking about what I wanted to do, how I wanted to make this radically different that hopefully would make it work where other diet and exercise routines had failed. And one of the things was I think I have to admit to myself when I have a problem, whether it's with like crazy spending and the sort of endless consumerism keeping up with the Joneses world, or whether it's with, sort of moving away from my faith, not a lot of Jews down here in the deep South, right? So I wanted to make sure that when I took the journey, I focused on multiple different things that I thought would make the journey more successful. And so finishing paying off all that credit card debt, finishing paying off my car loans, next up is my student loans, right, was a big part of that. And also, moving back towards my faith and now being 10 or 11 months in, I don't think it would have worked if I had just tried to isolate one of them and worked on them one at a time. It's just that's not really how life works, right? So, right, like, and
Yeah.
so I think trying to isolate like my diet and really focus on it, although it seems like a good idea, is part of the reason I failed in the past because I wasn't also working on my financial stability. I wasn't also reaching more for that next degree or certification. I wasn't working on my connection with God, things of that nature, working on my relationships, right? So they drive each other in that I'm taking a similar sort of trial and error discipline based approach, and they reinforce each other. Now that you see successes in each one, it makes me want to push harder. And I think I faced a similar issue at the very beginning of each when I was over 400 pounds, and then a year or two prior when I had over 40,000 on a single credit card, right? Or when I was living somewhere where there's just not a synagogue around, right? So I'm just not going to be religious, right? It's things of that nature. Or, I tried therapy and I wasn't super impressed with it. So I just, well, then I can't fix my mental health, right? It was, you get stuck in that state of mind that's very similar to all those places, and you have to take those first steps in each one of those, right? Make that first time making an extra credit card payment, that first time reaching out
Yeah.
to God again, that first time walking into the gym at over 400 pounds. It's those initial steps, and they feel very similar for each one, even though they're very different actual acts. And so driving them all together and being reinforced by the small successes in each one has been a huge part of the journey.
Yes, I love it. So almost success breeds success.
I think
You
so.
get one, you're
Yeah,
like, oh, I can do this. I might be able to do this,
absolutely. Yeah.
and I love that. And it's just, and so all areas of your life are getting better. You're moving closer towards your goals versus just saying, like you said, 40,000 in credit card debt. I give up.
Yeah, exactly.
Error
Very,
message on
very
the
easy to get
scale.
up. Yes,
I
exactly.
give up. Error
Yeah.
message. Like I give up. But no, you proved yourself. Well, I can do it here. Maybe I'll do it here. And I love that. And I love that the same sort of trial and error method has been successful in all areas of your life now. That's very encouraging.
Thank you.
So what message would you like to leave with others who might be in similar situation to where you were last year and don't know how to get started? You're seeing an error message. You're looking in the mirror. You're not happy with what you see. Maybe you're even got debt that you don't know how to deal with. What would be your words? What would you tell those people that might be looking at saying, I'm completely stuck. There's no way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the main things that I tell people is, especially men, is that no man is an island. And I know it's very hard to talk about mental health for men because we're not supposed to have feelings and emotions, but we do. And admitting to myself and then being able to admit to my family and my friends that I might have some problems. I've never been diagnosed with anything. I don't want to misrepresent it, but there was clearly something going on in my head to get me over 400
Oh
pounds,
yeah.
right? That's not just eating like a little bit too much every day. That's something way beyond that, right? And so admitting to yourself and then admitting to others that you might need a support network, that you might need people in person and online, and that you aren't an island. I wish I could convince my earlier self of that. And the other thing is, we live in a world of instant gratification, instant dopamine hits, and everything has to happen immediately, right? You have these 4-second TikTok videos. I'm fat in this picture. I'm not fat in this picture. But between that was a year, 2 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I try to document that, sometimes I see those troll comments that are a little annoyed with it, is there are going to be some weeks when I lose, only 0.8 pounds and I look identical, right? Because I'm still 290 some pounds, right?
Yeah.
There's still a long way to go. And so the slow, the steady, the sustainable, and the sane approach to getting rid of $40,000 on one credit card, right, to getting 100 pounds down and the next 100 pounds down, that's how I'm going to do it. And before, I had tried these fad diets, these crash diets, the biggest loser type, 4, 5, 6 hours of exercising a day while being in 1,000 calorie deficit. You only eat lettuce, right? And it works, for a month or two. It looks good on a TV show. It looks good in a tweet, but then you're miserable. You fall off the diet. You gain it all back. And so taking a much more slow and thought out approach is one other thing I really would leave with people in my situation or worse. And the last thing I would say is just that you will find experts on the internet who will tell you anything and everything, usually because they're trying to sell you something.
Yes.
And I would highly recommend, let's say, making your own path, figuring out what works for you. The diet I started on a year ago is similar to what I'm doing now, but not the same. The exercise is very different. And so I have built that over the last year. But the point was, at the beginning, I didn't know what worked, but at that point, I knew what didn't work. Right.
Mm.
I knew that eating all of that junk food, the fast food, the processed food, the packaged food, all the food that was handed through my car window, I knew that that wasn't working for me. I knew drinking my calories wasn't working for me. I knew I was probably drinking too much alcohol. Right. And I knew swiping that credit card that often was not working for me. I didn't have a full strategy from how I was going to go from 400 and something to 100 and something, but I knew what needed to stop initially. I didn't know what to do in the gym, right? But I knew I needed to get to the gym as opposed to not getting to the gym. And so that is really where I started. I didn't have the knowledge, but I had the knowledge of what not to do. And I think a lot of people are probably in that place and then stuck by doing too much analysis or the intimidation or the shame of not knowing what to do, but knowing how you got there and what doesn't work. So if you can stop doing those things and take that first step, that was really, the first month or two at least, that's what it took to get the ball rolling for me. And just remember to reach out to people. I try to respond to as many DMs as I can, but I know it's very hard, especially for men, even me talking about it, but I try to just reinforce the message that, like, when you reach out to other men in the gym or elsewhere, even when I post like a steak picture and I screwed up the steak, right? I have chefs who've been on the Food Network reaching out to me, giving me their numbers, telling me to FaceTime them the next time so that I can make sure I get that sear right, the reverse sear on that steak right. Amazing, right? We men will support each other, but we have a hard time asking. We have a hard time reaching out. And I would just suggest to me, or it doesn't have to be to me, right? But reach out and ask for it. Guys are the most supportive people that I've met, but you have to ask, right? And so I wish 400 plus pound Dave realized that a couple years ago.
That's great. Well, I don't think that guy will ever exist again. Based on
Amen.
my conversation with you and what I'm
Amen.
seeing, that guy is long gone, and 100-pound Dave is in the future for sure.
Thank you.
Whatever, at some point, whatever your goal is.
That's the right. Starting with a 1. That's the goal.
Start
right
with
now.
a 1, right? That's fantastic. This has been fantastic, Dave. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and coming on the show and talking about your journey, because I think it is really helpful for people to hear this and to be inspired by your story, and to realize that you might feel stuck, but you can take you can move forward, and there are ways to move forward. And just like you take a trial and error approach, whatever you feel like you're stuck at is you can move forward. And I love what you say is don't be afraid to reach out to others. Men tend to be, we tend to keep everything in, but as soon as someone asks us for help, we're gonna dive in there, we're gonna help. And I like that piece of advice you provide is don't be afraid to ask, don't be afraid to, and again, we talk about this on the show too, is don't be afraid to suck.
Yeah,
Right. Some people don't
absolutely.
want to do something because they're like, well, I don't want to go for a run because I don't, I'm going to look stupid. I don't want
Yes.
to go use this piece of gym equipment. But you're in anything you do in life, you're going to suck when you first start, and don't be afraid to
Absolutely.
suck, and just
Absolutely.
keep at it until you get to where you're excellent at something. So
Agreed.
I love that. Very encouraging message. Dave, how can people find out more about you and follow you on your journey?
Absolutely. I'm Dave E. Danna on Twitter and on Facebook, and I'm David E. Danna on Instagram. Someone else has Dave E. Danna. But yeah, you can find me. Those are my main three platforms. I have a small YouTube channel on but in general, I'm the fat guy posting gym selfies at Planet Fitness at 4:30 a.m. If you're seeing that, then that's me.
Absolutely. And we're going to go ahead and put links in the show notes for all those resources so you can connect with Dave. You can watch his journey and be inspired by his journey, just like I am. Dave, thank you for taking time out of your day. Thank you for sharing your journey, and thanks for all that you're doing. And congratulations for all your success up to this point.
Pleasure being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks again. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.